Have you ever held a dream so big it barely fits inside your chest? A dream too wild to speak out loud because you know people like you don't get things like that? This is the story of Eliza Hart. She was 9 years old the first time someone told her she wasn't old enough, smart enough, or important enough to matter. She was 11 when she proved them all wrong. This story doesn't begin with a fairy tale entrance. Subscribe to the channel now to know what happens next in Eliza's story. It begins in a rusted mobile home on the edge of Dayton, Ohio, with a flickering lamp, a little girl typing on a borrowed laptop, and a resume saved under the name Eliza for CEO. Docs. No one knew what she was planning. Not her mother, who worked third shift at a laundry plant and hadn't seen a paycheck with more than 2 digits in months. Not her school counselor, who kept gently reminding Eliza that her gifted label didn't mean much without a stable home. Not even her 5th-grade teacher, who didn't know Eliza was secretly studying business case studies during lunch, or that she had already read Harvard Business Review articles front to back. What they did know, she was quiet. And quiet kids don't make waves. But that's the thing about quiet girls with big dreams. They don't need noise to make impact. They just need one shot, one moment, one sentence. The day Eliza walked into the towering glass building that housed Vantage Corp, a multi-billion-dollar tech firm that had its logo on everything from smart speakers to skyscraper elevators, no one noticed her at first. She was small, wearing a hand-me-down blazer with sleeves too long and scuffed Mary Janes that had seen 4 other feet before hers. Her mother had dropped her off blocks away, thinking Eliza was visiting a friend from school. Instead, the girl walked straight past the revolving doors and stepped into the marble atrium like she belonged there. The security guard blinked as she approached the front desk. "I'd like to speak to Mr. Grayson, please," she said, voice steady. The receptionist paused, squinting. "I'm sorry, are you with a school tour?" "No, ma'am," Eliza said, pulling out a neatly printed resume from her backpack. "I'm here about a job." The receptionist stifled a laugh. "Sweetheart, Mr. Grayson is the CEO of Vantage Corp. He doesn't." Just then, a voice cut in behind her. "What's this?" A man in a charcoal suit, sharp but weary, approached. It was Peter Grayson himself, mid-50s, the type of executive who'd built an empire but hadn't taken a vacation in 9 years. He was on his way to another shareholders' call when he stopped, curious. Eliza turned, extended the resume with both hands, and said, "I came to apply for a job. But not just any job." Grayson blinked, more amused than annoyed. "Oh! And what job is that?" She looked him dead in the eye. "Your seat." Silence. Then, as Grayson reached for the paper, she added one more sentence. One sentence that hit like a freight train. "My dad used to work for you before he died. And I need to know if everything he believed in was real." Grayson froze. For a second, the entire lobby felt like it held its breath. He stared at the resume, suddenly unable to look away. The name at the bottom of the page, Eliza Hart, meant something. The last name. The quiet conviction. The way she stood like someone who had already lost too much to care about being told no. He didn't know what made him do it. But he looked at the receptionist and said, "Cancel my call. I'll take this meeting." 30 minutes later, Eliza sat in the largest office she'd ever seen. Books lined the walls. The windows overlooked half the city. Grayson poured himself a glass of water and offered her juice, which she politely declined. "Your father," he said finally, "was Daniel Hart?" She nodded. "He was part of our R&D team," Grayson recalled. "Quiet guy. Sharp. Passionate about AI ethics. I always liked him." Eliza's voice trembled slightly now. "He always talked about your vision. Said Vantage Corp was going to change the world. Said he was proud to be part of it." Peter Grayson sat back. "I'm sorry we lost him. He believed in you," she said, barely above a whisper. "That's why I'm here. I want to know if I still should." And just like that, Peter Grayson, billionaire, CEO, titan of industry, felt something tighten in his throat. Because he remembered Daniel Hart. He remembered the man who stayed late without asking, who once quietly paid for a new headset for a junior intern without telling HR. He remembered sending flowers when he heard about the accident on I-75. He remembered feeling guilty that he never followed up again. And now here was the man's daughter, 11 years old, brave enough to walk into the lion's den with a resume and a sentence that felt more like a mirror than a challenge. Grayson read the resume. It was hand-typed, spelled perfectly. Under experience, it listed, organized after-school tutoring sessions for third graders. Created a mock product pitch deck for a smart toy. Helped mother budget grocery expenses using Excel. Reads 1 to 2 business articles daily. Under objective, it said, to lead a company that my dad would be proud of. To make sure no one gets forgotten. Peter Grayson closed the folder gently. Eliza, he said slowly, do you know what courage means? She nodded. It's being scared, but doing it anyway. He nodded, fighting something behind his eyes. Exactly. Then he smiled, not the kind you give to children, but the kind you give to someone you respect. Well, Miss Hart, he said, I think I'd like to offer you an internship. Her eyes widened. I know you're only 11. And we don't usually hire future CEOs quite this early, but I think we can make an exception. Her mouth opened slightly. You mean it? I mean it, he said, extending a hand. But on one condition. She reached out and shook his hand. What's the condition? That you promise to come back in 15 years and take my seat. Her face broke into the first real smile of the day. Deal. The next morning, a photo appeared in the Dayton Daily News under the headline, CEO Peter Grayson meets unlikely future intern, 11-year-old girl walks into office with resume, leaves with job offer. In the photo, Eliza sat beside Grayson in his executive office, her hands folded over her lap, chin lifted, her father's quiet confidence in her eyes. It went viral within hours. By noon, CNN had picked it up. By 4 p.m., so had Good Morning America. And by dinner, Eliza's inbox, monitored now by a Vantage Corp assistant, held over 3,000 messages from people around the world. But none of that mattered to her as much as one message that night. A handwritten note slipped beneath the door of their mobile home. No name, no return address. Just one sentence. Daniel Hart would be so proud. Her mother cried when she read it. Eliza didn't. She just placed the note inside her father's old lunchbox, the one with the sticker that read, "Build things that matter." Grayson had meant it when he offered her an internship. Of course, legally, they had to call it a Junior Mentor Fellowship. Vantage Corp's HR department scrambled to create the title overnight. But make no mistake, Eliza became the youngest person in the company's 18-year history to hold an employee ID. Her badge said, Eliza Hart, Junior Fellow, Special Projects. Every Thursday after school, a black car arrived to pick her up. She sat in on team meetings, watched pitch decks get torn apart and rebuilt, listened to engineers argue about innovation versus responsibility, and slowly, quietly, began asking questions that made grown adults pause. One afternoon, she asked, if our devices collect people's voices, shouldn't they also give people a way to erase them? The room went silent. A week later, the privacy team had a new subcommittee. It was called the Hart Clause. Peter Grayson started keeping a notepad titled Elizisms. He wrote down her quotes, her insights. And once, after she suggested that tech should feel like kindness, not control, he told his board of directors, I hired an 11-year-old to be our conscience. That says more about us than her. But not everyone was on board. Some of Grayson's senior staff weren't thrilled that a preteen was being given face time with executives. One in particular, Don Kessler, Vantage Corp's director of global strategy, voiced it plainly. She's a child, Peter. Smart, sure, but not qualified to influence billion-dollar decisions. Grayson didn't flinch. And yet, she's asking questions none of us have. Questions aren't strategy, Kessler shot back. Grayson smiled. Sometimes they're better. One Friday afternoon, months into her mentorship, Eliza came to Grayson's office with a piece of paper. It was folded once, neat and clean. "This is a list of ideas," she said. "For your company. Things we could build." Grayson unfolded it. It had 12 items. Some were simple. Affordable smart hearing aids for kids. A smartwatch that could detect when someone was being bullied, voice tone plus movement tracking. Others were more ambitious. A device for low-income homes that teaches job interview skills via voice AI. An AI assistant that only gives advice based on empathy, not efficiency. Grayson read the list 3 times. Then he looked at her and said something he hadn't said to anyone in years. "Would you like to help me build one?" Eliza blinked. "Build something real?" "More than real," he said. "Something that changes things." She nodded slowly, heart pounding. "Okay, but only if I get to name it." He laughed. "Deal." She thought for a moment, then said, "Let's call it Echo Kind. Because kindness should be the loudest echo we leave behind." By summer, Echo Kind was more than a prototype. It was a movement. A voice-guided mentorship app, free for public school students, that taught soft skills, confidence, and emotional intelligence through storytelling. Co-designed by a girl who once sat in the back row of a 5th-grade classroom, trying not to get noticed. And when it launched, Grayson didn't speak at the press conference. Eliza did. Standing in front of a room full of press, tech leaders, and educators, she said, "Some people think kids don't know how the world works. But maybe they're the only ones who still remember how it should." The room stood in silence. Then applause. Then tears. Grayson wiped his eyes as he watched her speak. Later that night, someone asked him what made him cry. He looked down at his hand, still holding her resume from that first day. "She reminded me why I started this company in the first place." 6 months later, EchoKind reached 100,000 users. Then 500,000. By the end of the year, it was adopted in 7 public school districts, translated into 3 languages, and cited by Fast Company as the first education tech product designed from a child's emotional intelligence up, not down. And Eliza Hart, once just the girl with a paper resume and a sentence that broke a billionaire, had become a quiet name in innovation circles. Not because she shouted, not because she sold, but because she saw what was missing, what people needed, what her father had once believed in. The day Grayson officially stepped down from Vantage Corp's board, his decision to retire early drawing both praise and whispers, he made only one formal recommendation in his exit memo. "There's a girl named Eliza Hart. She's 12 now. If you're smart, you'll start building the future with her today. Or one day, you'll be trying to catch up to it." They laughed. They smiled. But they listened. Because Grayson wasn't prone to exaggeration. And when the man who built one of the most respected tech empires in the country points to a middle schooler and says, "Follow her," you ask for her calendar. The night before her 13th birthday, Eliza stood in her old bedroom, walls still bare except for one photo, her and her dad at a science fair, him in his worn Vantage Corp hoodie, her holding a ribbon that said participation. Her mother came in, holding a flat box. "This came for you," she said. "From Mr. Grayson." Inside was a framed copy of her resume. He had highlighted just one line. "Objective, to lead a company my dad would be proud of." Beneath it, he had handwritten, "He already is. PG." Eliza didn't cry. She just smiled. Then sat down at her desk. Opened a new Google Doc. Typed a title, Hart and Company, Future Proposals. Then wrote her first idea. A platform where kids can teach adults how to listen again. 2 years later, Forbes ran a feature titled The CEO Whisperer, How a Girl from a Trailer Park Became the Voice of a Generation. It opened with a now famous quote. She didn't break the door down. She knocked, waited, and when no one answered, she walked in anyway, holding a resume and a truth no one had the courage to say themselves. Venture capitalists emailed. Foundations offered grants. Universities extended honorary credits. But Eliza stayed focused. She accepted one interview with a school newspaper. When asked what she wanted to be when she grew up, she said, "I want to be someone who remembers where she came from. I want to be someone who doesn't forget what it felt like to be small in a room full of giants." The student reporter asked her if she still planned to take Peter Grayson's seat one day. Eliza smiled. "No," she said. "I think I'll build my own table. But I'll leave extra chairs. For other kids. Just like me." 3 years later, at a Vantage Corp event honoring Grayson's legacy, the stage lights dimmed as Eliza, now 15, walked up to the podium. The room held CEOs, politicians, inventors, and influencers. But none of that fazed her. She stood taller than she had that first day in the lobby. But the same fire lived behind her eyes. "This company was built on dreams," she said. "But dreams without conscience collapse. My dad believed in a company that would change lives. He gave everything to it. So I came here not to reclaim his legacy." She paused, but to ask the question he never got to finish. Silence. Then she looked straight into the crowd. "What are we building? And will it matter to the ones who have the least?" There was no applause at first. Just stillness. Reverence. Then it began, soft, then swelling until the entire auditorium stood. Grayson, now in his 60s, eyes shining, joined them, clapping like his hands were keeping time with history. Later that evening, she found him backstage. They didn't speak at first. Then he said, quietly, "You said once you wanted my seat." She shook her head. "I changed my mind." "Oh!" She smiled. "I want yours. But I don't want to sit in it. I want to stand beside it and make sure the next kid who walks in holding a dream doesn't get laughed out the door." Grayson exhaled. "You're not the future, Eliza. You're the compass." Years later, her story would be taught in business schools, shared in classrooms, whispered between parents and children. But the real story? The one no headline could hold? It lived in a sentence. Just one, spoken by a little girl, holding a resume, and a name, and a truth that broke a billionaire. "My dad used to work for you, and I need to know if everything he believed in was real." It was. Because she made it so. If you enjoyed the story and don't want to miss the story that's coming tomorrow, subscribe now and turn on post notifications.